Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nian Quash from the University of New Hampshire, and welcome to the Arrow Intro to College Week. So this is the first session of the week, and it is a welcome to student and kind of explaining, setting the tone for the rest of the series. So we're very excited to be joined by Richard Haynes, who's a colleague of mine from the admission team at the University of New Hampshire. He will introduce himself. But just so you know, there'll be more info as well as session on different topic regarding college. So we hope that you would check it out. So without further ado, Richard?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, as Nian said, my name is Richard Haynes. I am one of the admissions counselors here at the University of New Hampshire. I'm excited to be here with you today to talk to you about the power of education. Why college? And in order to get you to understand why college was so important for me, I need to tell you my story. And so when you think of my story, I want you to think of an essay. So imagine an admissions counselor reading my essay as I tell you this story. And there's two-part talk to this. Something I didn't know then when I was going through high school, juxtaposition of what I know now. I want to prove to you in this conversation today that there's no tricks getting into the college of your choice. When you get through, you should be empowered to believe that I can do this. We're going to show you every step of the way exactly what we're doing to literally help you and support you and guide you like your guidance counselors are doing, your parents are doing, but you're going to hear from an admissions perspective exactly what you need to do to get into the college of your choice. Now, I want you to come with me on a journey of struggle, gaining strength, sorry about that, struggle, gaining strength, and freedom through the power of education. I was born in an extraordinary family, but unfortunately, this was a first-gen family. And where there is no education, the people shall struggle. That's why I said struggle, but gaining strength and freedom through the power of education. I was born to two extraordinary family members, right? Mom and dad are extraordinary people, but unfortunately, neither one of them had a college education and barely a high school education, and I'll tell that story in a moment. So I had my dad at my home once, and I said to Dad, listen, Dad, you're of a certain age, and what I want you to do is sit down and I want to record your story. And the thing that I remember in him sitting there and telling me his story, he was a sixth grader, sitting there or standing in the fields with his father, picking the harvest for the wealthiest people in the nation because they were born sharecroppers. And that little sixth grader, my dad was in the sixth grade. And what happened was, as he was working in the field, his father, eyes bulged out of his head, and he began to grab for his shirt. And he lied down in a hot field and took his last breath, died of a massive heart attack. And that little sixth grader looked his father in his eyes while he's taking his last breath. And like my father, my mother was in the same boat, on the same boat. She quit school in the 8th grade, but her father, Grandpa Ole, was determined that making $900 a year was not going to feed his family. So what he did, he grew crops on the side. And every weekend he went to the marketplace with his next door neighbor who drove him down to the marketplace to sell his crops. Tradition would tell you that once the day was over, Grandpa Ole would come, knock on the door, and my mother, that little 8th grader, would quickly run to that door and open that door, and her father would give her a Tootsie Roll lollipop. But on this particular day, it didn't happen that way. The knock on the door, Mom ran to the door, that little 8th grader. When she opened the door, the gentleman who drove him down to the marketplace, Grandpa Ole to the marketplace, looked that little girl in the eyes and said, "Your father just passed away." Grandpa Ole passed away with pneumonia. Well, life goes on. Work still has to be done. Grandmas on both sides got up every day and still worked the fields. They're the first in the fields with the pesticides, the snakes, the hot sun, the bees. They work the fields sunrise to sunset. And running up these long rows, and every time they get to the scale on the other side of that row, the farmer dropped change in their hands. And like my grandparents, my grandmother, my mother had to work the fields along with them. 8th grader, yes, working the fields, picking the harvest for the wealthiest people. All hands had to be on deck because that was the way they were going to make their income. So my 2 parents going to the same church for years, that the church in their community, went to church for years and not even notice each other's. And all of a sudden the hormones kicked in. They saw each other's, got married, and they had little Richard. Yes, I can remember still today being cuddled by my mother and being told, son, you are just as good as anyone else. Don't you allow anybody's opinion of you to become your reality. You're born to win. But in order to win, son, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and don't you ever, ever, ever expect not to win. Constantly cuddled and inspired and motivated. But by the age of 5, I was expected to be in the fields alongside my parents. All hands on deck. The more hands you had in that field, the more money you could possibly make for the year. But all of a sudden, at the age of 7, I learned to read. Some of my struggles began. I'm in the Deep South. I'm a child of the Civil Rights Movement. Some of my struggles began. I would literally go downtown, out of my community, and go downtown. And there I would see big black, bold white signs that says, no colors are allowed in public parks, hotels, motels, public library, restaurants, beaches, colors only water fountain, colors only bathroom. I look at my mom and I says, Mom, why? Son, remember, you are just as good as anyone else. And is anyone out there feeling out of place? I want to reassure you that you are just as good as anyone else. We all bring value to this universe. We would go into a shoe shop and the shopkeepers would not even allow us to sit in the showroom. They literally push us back into the stock room, sit me down on a little stool. My mother had to draw my footprint on a brown paper bag. And when she drew my footprint on a brown paper bag, the shopkeeper took the drawing, take the shoe out of the box and asked my mother as she placed the shoe on top of the drawing, asked my mother, does that shoe fit your child? When my mother thought that that shoe could fit her child, my mother would bow her head and literally say, yes, ma'am. We left that shoe shop and went into a clothing shop. And as we're in that clothing shop, I want to try on a hat, but you didn't try on a hat until you bought that hat. Very much like the shoes. They create a little brown paper bag and they put it on top of that little boy's head and then put the hat on top of his head and ask, Mom, did you think that hat fit your child? Well, Mom thought that it possibly could. Mom would bow her head and humbly say, yes, ma'am. Come to try on a suit. Shopkeeper takes the suit off of the rack, hold it a foot away from that little boy and ask Mom, do you think that suit fits your child? And you know what she would say. Well, for years we contemplated, is this the way we really want to live? We all sit out and we talk and think and talk and think, and we talk and we think about whether or not this is the way we want to live. And we finally decide we're going to leave the Deep South and we are going to go to the big cities. Well, Mom promised me that the big city was going to be a better place. Well, we arrived in the big city, stepped out of that car, and I'm contemplating, is this better? I would say to Grandma, Grandma, you guys promised me that you were going to bring me someplace better. Grandma had a way of getting my attention. She would nudge my two ear, lift up my chin, and she would say, son, better? Better only if you make it better. Well, in this place called better, we're living in that big city. And when the lights turn down in this apartment and give it about 30 minutes, switch that light back on, there were cockroaches all over this place. I've never seen a cockroach in my life before. One night, my 13-year-old sister screamed to the top of her lung. A cockroach had gotten in her ear. This was better. You let the building quiet down. The spirits and the soul of people are all at perfect rest. And all of a sudden, the walls came alive. The ceilings came alive. Rats the size of squirrels running through the walls and running through the ceiling. And when they ran across your bedroom floor, my brother and I slept in the same room, in the same bed. We would look at each other and say, oh my God. Well, the next day we woke up, we were sick and tired of being tormented by these rats. Big squirrel, mangy rats came into our apartment every night. If you had pipes to heating apartments that went up from floor to floor, and if that little metal disc was not on that floor, the rats came through the floorboard and right up into the apartment. Well, we went to Central Park using our Southern skills, and we created bow and arrows. We were not going to be intimidated by these rats any longer. The night came. We'd already washed up, eaten, dressed in our little white skivvies, getting ready for bed. Mom always left the light on in the bathroom at nights, did two things. Didn't want you to walk in there at nights because these rats were mean, fast, and vicious. And two, when the light was on, told the rats that someone would probably still up. Well, the building quieted down. Spirits and the soul of the people are all at perfect rest. And all of a sudden, the first rat ran out of the bathroom. My little brother, Floyd, jumped onto the couch, pulled back on the bow and released the arrow. That rat was so athletic, it jumped over the arrow and back into the bathroom. Now they started running in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the bathroom. My little brother and I, we pulled back on the bow and released the arrows, pulled back on the bow and released the arrows. And guess what? Now all the arrows are on the other side of the enemy line. It was too dark to go and get it. And my brother and I sort of like sat back to rethink our military strategy over a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You could possibly see I'm the neat guy of this story. I went to the kitchen sink, switched out my mouth, rinsed up my hand, crawled to bed, but Floyd, 6 years old, must have been tired and crawled to bed without removing the peanut butter and jelly off of him, around his lips, around his fingertips and his hands. The next morning we woke up to this day. I don't know whether or not one rat was in bed with us or all four of those rats were in bed with us, but every place that little boy left peanut butter and jelly, the rats chewed on him all night. Woke up the next morning and I said, the only reason why we are in this predicament was because of the lack of education. It is education that will give you freedom and opportunity in this country. I promise you that. Now, if you think without education, you can afford to buy washers and dryers, no, you can't. If you think without education, you're not going to do strange things, as my parents said, son, stay away from drugs and alcohol, and it'll make you do things you never thought you would have done. Without education, ladies and gentlemen, then you may want to think about being an entrepreneur. Now, just in case you thought, oh, Harlem was like that, guess what? You don't know your Harlem history. On the upper left-hand side, Congressman Adam Clayton Powers and one of the greatest preachers in the country at the time. James Baldwin, who today doesn't even know James Baldwin, an extraordinary author, public speaker, civil rights activist, Congressman Percy Sutton, the first female millionaire in America, Madam C.J. Walker, Jacob Lawrence, an extraordinary artist, Langston Hughes, one of the country's best poets, all lived on the west side of Harlem because they were educated and wealthy. Well, life goes on, and I am now in middle school, and all the way through middle school, all the way through high school, my middle school teacher told me in the 7th grade, Richard, before I get through with you, you're going to be an extraordinary artist. Now, both of these two people were my angels, and that's the reason why you must respect your teachers, because you never know whether or not they're your angels or not. These two people, we're in the middle of the civil rights movement, black and whites having a strange issue together, and they should have no rights to help me, but Mrs. Miriam H. Powers said to me, before I leave this earth, you're going to be an extraordinary American artist. And just in case you guys are thinking, where is Mr. Haynes there? I'm on the upper right-hand side, top row with the striped tie on. So Mrs. Miriam H. Powers would literally take me out of my community every weekend, take me into the Museum of Natural History, take me into the Metropolitan Museum, the Modern Art Museum, and constantly talk to me about literally the arts, Romans, Greeks, Mayans, colors, lines, shapes, form. And then I went to high school up downtown. She is uptown. And when you find mentors in schools, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Listen to your mentors. I did not listen to my mentor. I kept telling Mrs. Powers, even when we met on weekend, she wants to know, how are you doing academically? Miss Powers, I'm doing fine. And guess what? I was not doing fine. 4 years, ladies and gentlemen, going to happen real quick. And I was not academically prepared to go on to college. I had to go off to the military, fought in a war, return home, and my angel, Mrs. Miriam H. Powers, met me at the airport. She said to me, are you ready to finish your education now? I had to go to community college because I had messed up so badly in high school, and I don't want you guys to do this. And that's why I am passionate about this conversation. But when I did started college, I became an academic warrior. Education was definitely going to give me freedom and opportunities. I went to school full-time and worked full-time. And ladies and gentlemen, that 6 years happened real quick. I've got a master's degree in fine arts, and I am today a nationally known, I am today a nationally known American artist, all because of the power of education. What you have just visioned was all of my paintings, all of my photographs, Masters of Fine Arts in Photography, Bachelors of Fine Arts as a printmaker. Education gave me freedom and opportunities. And what Nian is about to tell you is, how do we do that, Mr. Haynes? What do we need to do? And without further ado, I will let Nian take the show.
Thank you so much, Richard. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nian Quach, and I am a Senior Assistant Director of Admission at the University of New Hampshire. So now that Richard, Mr. Haynes, had talked with you about his story and the people in his family and community that help inspire, mold, and shape his story, we are going to transition into talking about your story, right? The story that you have shaped so far and will continue to shape over the course of your high school career. As you know, the college application process, and as you will see over the course of the next few minutes, is really about taking ownership over your story and your experiences, advocating for yourself. And just as Richard has done for you, reflecting back on the moment that shaped you and inspired you while looking ahead on how the experience has shaped your goal and your aspiration and the work that you strive to do for yourself as well as others. So a day in the life of your admission counselor is really another way to think about how this is how your college application represents your story to your admission counselor, right? How we use that story to get to know you and understand your experiences and what you will bring to our community or whatever community that you choose to join across, on college campus across the country. All right. So as you can see, as I pop up these bubble onto the screen, that there are many components to a college application, right? And they truly work together through what we call a holistic review to tell your story, okay? So as you go through high school and as you reflect back on your life, we want you to think about what story you want to tell, okay? You have control over this process, and our goal is to make it as clear, transparent, and understandable as possible. So no tricks here, it's really straightforward. We place the greatest emphasis on your transcript because this is your academic history, telling us a story of what courses you've taken, how you worked to prepare for the next level of education, how you have worked to prepare for college. You have full control over your academic destiny, right? The transcript is one page, but it will tell the story of how you woke up every day to work toward your goal. Hand in every assignment, right? Reach out to your teacher when you struggle in class. Learn how to study. Learn how to connect with your classmates. Learn how to form a study group, right? So when you look at your transcript, I encourage you to take ownership over the story by remembering each of the experiences you have had in the classroom as well as beyond. And then again, you have full control of your academic history or your academic story. So control your academic story through planning, goal, and the daily execution. All right, so your application, now remember, this is your story once again, just as Mr. Haynes had talked about, right? It's your time to tell your story and advocate for yourself. And the student who can best advocate for themselves are the students who have taken the opportunity to learn how to best tell their story. So hold back nothing, okay? When we sit down to read an application, pretty much all admission reviewer or counselor will have some form of application summary or tracking sheet. Think of a broad overview of your story, like a snapshot or a summary of who you are, right? It will tell us all the important information like GPA, which is grade point average, where you went to high school, your test score, if you decide to submit it, what major you're interested in. We also make note as we read through your application, your letter of recommendation, notes such as resilient, determined, a leader, responsible. So as I read your story and learn about you, your application, I'll keep tab on the note and what I've learned about you. So first stop is arriving at your personal information, okay? This section will tell me how to contact you. Remember, we'll be in conversation. I might reach out to you with questions. And of course, you can always reach out to me or any admission counselor at any school about questions that you might have about their admission process. We'll learn more about your demographic, first language spoken, if you speak multiple languages, and here at UNH, if the application fee poses a financial burden to you, your family, you can request a fee waiver also. Now you've heard Mr. Haynes talk about his family, how they inspired him and motivated him. Through your application, you get to tell us about your family. This will also tell us if you're a first-generation college student, meaning that you are the first in your family to attend a 4-year college or university. It will also tell us you have an older or younger sibling and whether they've attended college and where. So next, we'll learn about your senior year courses, and we are looking for you to have a strong program of study that will prepare you for when you reach college. So no senioritis, okay? You tell us about your future plans so we can know more about those goals and aspirations you are forming. So it's gonna be doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, artist, right? For others, you will use this time to explore your interests, right? That's okay. You don't have to have a set career as you go through the process, but you should have those guiding hopes and goal and aspiration. For instance, to write, to develop, to teach, to do in service of others. So every university had a different criteria surrounding testing, and I know they have kind of got more complicated or maybe simpler, depending on who you ask, regarding testing because of COVID. At the University of New Hampshire, we are test optional. Not all schools are, so you do want to do a little research, and test optional can mean different things for different schools. So as you start developing the list of colleges you can see yourself attending, you want to know, do they require tests? What are the average test score? How will the test impact admission decision or merit scholarship? And then of course, there are also great resources like Khan Academy to help you do well on those tests. So if you do choose to take the test, check those out. And of course, just prepare and keep your option open. So next, you got the extracurricular activity or your resume, right? So your resume or your activity sheet tell us the story of how you spend your time outside the classroom. It helps us to know what amazing quality are you bringing with you as you come into our community. Are you responsible? Do you care for your sibling or your, grandparents? Perhaps you work a job to contribute to household expenses. Do you participate in community services? Might you bring that strong sense of service to others with you, to our community, if we choose to accept you? Do you tutor? Do you participate in a sport? Now, as you think about all your extracurricular activity, we do encourage you to keep in mind that the key thing for us and many colleges and universities is balance, okay? What we mean by that is we want to see you doing well in your coursework, in your academic, while balancing these commitments, because that is what will ultimately make you successful at the college level. All right, so now, as you know, as we mentioned, Richard's story is his essay, right? And so by the same logic, your essay is your story. That's what it's all about. This personal statement is about who you are and your story. So your essay is truly your chance to shine, to tell us who you are and what mattered to you, okay? This is your story of self. Now, as far as Arrow Intro to College Week, we are hosting a workshop on essay writing Tuesday, August 10 at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard. All these sessions are being recorded and will become available to you to check out afterward. So I strongly encourage you to attend or check out the recorded version if you miss it. And this will be really helpful as you prepare to write your own essay. All right, so we don't spend too much time, but we don't want to spend too much time on disciplinary because Mr. Haynes and I know that we're all angels in the audience here. But just a reminder, be mindful of how you are carrying and representing yourself inside as well as outside the classroom, especially in this day and age of social media. And here is where you will list the majors that you want to be considered for, okay? So the majors that will help you meet your goal and aspiration is what you should be putting down. And if you're not sure, undeclared is a great option. Regardless, do not play this game. Tell us exactly and directly what you want to study, what your first and second choices are. So next up is the letter of recommendation, okay? So the letter of recommendation tell us who you are within your community, your school community, or your sport community and so on, and what other things of you. I want you to think who in your school community know you and your story, right? Who can advocate for you and give us example and description of the type of way that you have grown and contribute to your community. who pushes you to achieve, who have seen your growth and your overcoming of challenges. Think of those people as you seek for letter of recommendation. Now, there are attributes that we love to see school counselor, teacher, or even coaches use to describe their time working with students. Now look at the list and work to live this list, okay, as you work within your community. How have you react to setback is what we want to know, right? That's part of your story. How, when you get a grade below your expectation, you work harder to master the material, or how do you work to revise the essay? How do you demonstrate concern for others? That's a part of your story. How do you work to include a classmate or help them when they struggles, right? How do you show leadership? That's part of your story. How do you step up to take care of others at work, in your team, in your community, all of that? And then, of course, in all things, once again, going back to academic achievement, that is the biggest component when it's come to any portion of your application. We want to know about that. And of course, last but not least, I encourage you to think about time when you demonstrate all of these different qualities, as they are all a part of your story of who you are. One of my favorite quotes from Gandhi is that a man is nothing but product of his thought. What he thinks, he becomes. So remember to continue to think of these attributes and work to demonstrate them in your community, in the work that you do on a daily basis. So next up is your transcript. Once again, going back to this biggest component of your application, be able to demonstrate your ability, your story of your academic, okay? Now, your transcript tell us, what are you preparing for, right? How are you preparing for it? I encourage you to, and I'm gonna go ahead and dismiss this real quick. Just get that. Your transcript is, it's really, look at your transcript and consider what story does it tell. Ask yourself that question, and then take it to the next level. What story do you want it to tell, okay? Malcolm X once said that education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare today. So prepare for your future, prepare accordingly. All right, last but not least, at UNH for every major, and I would say this is pretty standard for a lot of colleges and universities. We look for a set of core academic courses to meet our general admission requirement and to tell us that this student is prepared to do the work here. And we require these courses to be at least college prep level. However, we do love to see students appropriately challenge themselves with honor and IB and AP. And of course, make sure that it's all in the context of your college. And we want to make sure that if you are going to challenge yourself, that you do well in those courses, okay? Now I will turn back over to Mr. Haynes to tell us about the story that the transcript can tell. And once again, what kind of story you want your transcript to tell us.
So what I'd like to show you now are, and Ian, you can run this if you don't mind. What I'd like to talk about now are 4 students that I mentored. Now, the story you just told, the story that you just heard me tell you, that story was 8th graders. I told the story to 8th graders. And these 8th graders eventually become high schoolers. So this young lady's story goes like this. Her essay: I come from a single parent household. I never was held in the arms of my dad. Imagining my ear rest against his chest, I could listen to his heartbeat. Never looked him in the eyes. And one day my mother is literally coming in for a second job. She worked 2 jobs. She cleaned hotel by day, working a 24-hour bodega by night. One morning, she's coming in from the second job. I'm going off to school, and she comes in and she says, Mom's eye was full of tears. Jill looked at her mom and says, Mom, what's wrong? Mom looked her back in the eyes and said, Jill, I'm tired. I am really tired. Jill said, do you remember what Mr. Haynes said to me, Mom? Do you remember what he said to me? He says that I must get up every morning and rather than going to school, when I enter that school building, it is my full-time job. He says, never go to school anymore. Get up in the morning and go to work. Go to work because it is education that's going to give you freedom and opportunity. And as we go to the next slide, Mian, and click through every year. Did this young lady go to work or not? This young lady went to work, and that is what she accomplished. She came to UNH with a pretty healthy scholarship. She left UNH because she created the same kinds of grades that you see here now. When she went to Johns Hopkins University, her desire was to be a pediatric brain surgeon. And her name is Jill, and I still mentor Jill right now. She's now in her second year in Baltimore, Maryland, as a pediatric brain surgeon. Her mother, Martha, no longer works, now lives with Jill. Education gave this family freedom and opportunities. You must understand, it's here for you as well. There's no tricks in this. Just get up every morning and go to work. No tricks up in a admissions counselor's sleeve. You truly own this process. Let's go to the next applicant. Once more again, we look at the big picture on this applicant. We can see that the person has done some wonderful work. But now let's look at the small picture, the details of what the student have accomplished. We go to the next one. Now look at this student. 9th grade, clearly can do the work. 10th grade can clearly do the work. Junior year, you're having junioritis. As Nian says, no junioritis, no senioritis. Now this person had the same ability to make the same amount of income, merit scholarship, but threw it all away 11th and 12th grade. Doesn't even get half the income that Jill received. So be mindful. This transcript is the key to your success. So make sure you build a strong academic foundation. Let's go to the next applicant. Here goes the next applicant. Nice courses, those 5 core courses, math, science, foreign language, social science, and English, but typical American students. Let's look at the detail of this one, Nian. 9th grade, oh my goodness, typical 9th grader. You're throwing your academic integrity away and throwing getting merit scholarship in the way. And you hear guidance counselors would say, let's stay on this one, Nian. You will hear guidance counselors say, junior year is the most important year. You know why? You messed up 9th and 10th grade, and junior year has to be important this year, right? Because you want to show an admissions counselor, I have an upward swing, and that's when junior year is becoming important. Now, let's stay here for a moment. Let's really talk about this. Something happened in 9th grade. What normally happens in 9th grade, most students would say, well, 9th grade was the time when I was supposed to find friends and what kind of sports I was going to do, what girl likes me, what guy likes me, and so on and so forth. No. 9th grade, you were supposed to set the academic tone for what you were going to do for the next 4 years. Now, if you don't write an essay telling me what happened in this event, what I am going to do, unfortunately, is deny you. But did I deny you? No, I didn't. You denied yourself the opportunity to study at the college of your choice. But guess what? You can still go to college. You can still go to college. But at our university, I will say no to you. Unfortunately, I didn't do it. But Let me tell you something about this essay. There is a story behind 9th and 10th grade. This is Gail. I'm still mentoring Gail today. Gail, in the 9th grade, didn't do well. By sophomore year, she's really concerned. But there is a nice upward swing. And watch this upward swing. With a nice stern call from an admissions counselor by junior year, look at what happened senior year. Senior year, Nian, wow, there's an upward swing. Guess what? You can now get in college. You can come to UNH because now you're a solid B+ student, all because you listen. That's what admissions counselor calls the upward swing. Let's go to the next applicant. And the next applicant, that's the big picture. Let's look at the small picture. In this particular one, clearly can do the work. Sophomore year, let's stay here for a moment. Sophomore year, what's going wrong? There's something happening here. What's happening in junior year then? Oh, no. In this particular picture, this is really, we are going to deny you. That other one, I held you, but this one, I'm clearly going to deny, especially because you didn't even write an essay to tell me what was going on. So unfortunately, I clicked the deny button. Once more again, did I click that deny button or did you click that deny button? All based on your academic integrity. But this student does have a wonderful story. The story is sophomore year, mom possibly has a brain tumor. Mom does have a brain tumor by junior year. This family, first gen, didn't have good health insurance. Dad was smart. He bought a home when he was young. Dad then refinanced the home because his wife needed infusion. That's chemo pumped into her. Well, Dad did a bad job in refinancing his home. Dad literally went bankrupt. He divorces his wife and leaves the young lady with mom all alone. Mom calls her, Sarah, into the room and says, do you remember what Mr. Haynes said to you? Is education is going to give you freedom and opportunity in this country, and you must not go to school, but get up in the morning and go to academic work? Sweetie, I'm not too sure I'm going to be here much longer with you. I need you to literally focus. Look at senior year grades. How this young lady literally pumped up her academic integrity. By the way, mom passed first semester senior year. And even in her struggles, remember, there's struggles in our lives, but we gain strength and freedom through the power of education. She comes to University of New Hampshire, came to the University of New Hampshire, left here as a bachelor's degree in social work, went to the University of Mississippi, got her Master's of Fine Arts, and now this young lady is in Washington, D.C. as a social worker. Her desire was not to get an education and stick out her chest to say, look at me, how wealthy I am, how great I am. No, the power of education is for you to become the best you so that you can bring service to the world. That is the power of this, becoming the best you so that you can give it off to the world. She's now in Washington, D.C. as a social worker, wants no child in the communities that she works in, wants no child to ever have to struggle the way she did. So I leave this up to you. I would love for each and every one of you to literally work hard to become successful. But I can say this to you, next slide, Dan, that it is education that will give you freedom and opportunity in this country like nothing else. How do I know that? I took that journey from that dusty field, that rat, roach, heroin-infected apartment to where I am today in life. Education gave me freedom and opportunity. And I want you to know you have full control over this. No one else does. You're all born to win. In order to win, you got to plan to win, prepare to win. Don't ever, ever expect not to win. I will see you all at the top. Thank you all very much for being with us.